let's have a look at Trellis Stitch now. This stitch is formed of overlapping rows of stitching to form a grid pattern, and this is a finished one here. We need to work it in several parts, so we're going to put the grid down first. So this is the grid that we're going to work over here. I'll show you on this daisy design. So I'm going to put my grid down in a nice red colour so you can see that, and it's up to you which way you put your grid. Now it's easiest if you follow the grain of the fabric, so that can help you to place your stitches nice and straight. So I've done that one here. I've followed the grain up and down and left and right. Or you might want to, depending on the design you've got, follow the shape of the design. So for instance, in this design here, I'm going to do this central petal, and if I put my lines, if I put my stitches on the weave of the fabric, on the vertically and horizontally, it's not going to fit with the petal. So I'm actually going to work them that way for this petal. This one over to the right here has been worked on the grain, but it also happens to be from the top of the petal down to the point as well. So that one happens to work for both. So if you can make it work for your design that you are following the grain, that will help you, and that's a good way to practice it. But I'm going to go off the grain so it fits my petal shape here. So that's up to you which way you do it. Go with the design that you've got. So I'm going to start my thread well out of the way with the two little stitches. And I'm going to put my first stitch right up the middle of that petal. Because this is a symmetrical design, I want my grid to look symmetrical as well, really. So I'm going to put my first stitch right up the centre there, and I know that that will be even spacing both sides. So I'm just going to lay that in the right place. Make sure it's in the centre there, and it's going right from the base of that petal up to the tip there. And a little trick to make sure it stays in the right place is I'm going to put my needle through that thread. So if I put it to one side, you can move the thread around. So I'm going to go right through the middle on that design line, straight down like so. And you'll see that that just pulls through. So there's my first stitch. Now we're going to come up either side of this stitch now and put in parallel lines so that they run smoothly next to each other. Now a little tip here again is to use the needle to show you where that stitch is going to go. If you bring the needle through initially and it's in the wrong place, you have to take it back out. So you can just lie the needle down. That will show you the direction that your thread is going to work. It's a little bit close. I think you want maybe about 4 millimeters is quite nice for this sort of size project. So I quite like that there. So I'm happy with that. I'm coming up on the same side of my petal shape. You don't need to wrap the thread round and round the petal. Come up on the same side, and again lying that thread down in place. Make sure this distance is equal all the way up, and I can take my needle down vertically straight down, and that means that stitch won't move at all. There you go. I think I'll get one more in there, so I'm going to come up quite a way up this side now. It's not the distance between the ends of the stitches, it's the distance between the middle there. So you have to come up a little bit further than you think. Happy with that. Make sure that's coming straight up. Keep going as much as you can to fill in that shape. This stitch will need an edging around it later to finish it off and give that a nice smooth shape. So go as far to the edge as you can, but don't forget it will have an edging stitch around it, so you don't need to go right to the edge. So I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to come across to the other side and fill that side in. So I'm travelling from here over to here, which isn't too far, so I can just take that straight across. If you had a bit of a greater distance, just step your thread across, just a small straight up and down on the line to travel that thread over. But this isn't too great a distance. So again, upon the edge, lie that needle down tiny bit further in. Just take the time to get this right, because this will affect the grid on top as well. So straight down, and I think we might just get another short one in. I'll just try it and see. Just about, I think it's quite close, but just make a judgment about whether you need to or not. If you're not sure, I would put one in anyway, because it will always get covered. If you don't, it might not do. Okay, so I filled in that shape with my vertical stitches to my daisy, and now we're going to go and put another grid in the other way. So I'm near to the top. I'm not going to start at the very top, but I'm just going to come down a bit on that side there. We're going to go across horizontally. Now I want to make my grid into squares. There's lots of versions of this stitch. You can have diamonds, you can have squares, you can have double layers. This is the simplest version, and it's the one that all the others are based on. So I'm showing you this one first. So we'll do the simplest version. So I'm going to make these squares. So this angle needs to be 90 degrees. Not like that, because that'll give you diamonds. So let's have squares 90 degrees. When I'm happy that's straight across, back through the thread and down onto the other side. We're just going to repeat that first row at 90 degrees and put in a row over the top. Just taking my time to make sure I place these in the right position and they become squares, not rectangles. Okay, happy with that. So nice even square shape, and just work your way back down the shape, putting in that second grid. So we go right to the bottom, finish that thread off, 2 little stitches, back to the top, get rid of my knots. Right, now these stitches are quite long and they will move around, if I just show you that. So we need to hold them in place. So we're going to put this second row on now and put these little holding stitches in place here. Again, lots of variations you can do for this. This is the simplest one. So I'll show you this one on this occasion. And I'm going to use a contrasting colour just so it shows up. Just think a little bit about the colours that you use and colour mixing. If I was going to put a yellow on top, for example, from a distance it might look a bit orange, but I've got complementary colours here, so red and green go nicely together. Now I'm going to hold down these stitches at every intersection, so where every thread crosses another thread we're going to put a little stitch over it. You can do every other one if you like, but I think it's more secure to do every one, and it depends on what pattern you want to do. So we'll do every one on this occasion. So it's important now not to move this beautiful grid that we've just made. So I'm going to bring the needle up inside that square shape, but not too close to those stitches. If I come too close, I can just show you that, and then when you straighten the needle up, the grid moves. So we don't want to move the grid, so give yourself enough space, come up in that corner, vertically straight up with your needle, and then vertically straight back down again. On the other side of that intersection, again, just give yourself enough space, doesn't need to be a tiny stitch. Straight back down, and then hopefully that grid doesn't move. So we're going to place one of those stitches over every intersection. Try and get them the same length if you can. Straight up, straight back down, and that grid won't move. The whole sections are easy. You're going to have to make some decisions when you get to the side here. So this one, I will put one in over here. You can just about see that cross section. So just keep your pattern going as long as you can. Really, and another one there. The outline will neaten it all up, but you want to be able to make sure you've covered as many of these sections as you can, and just fill in the whole of that shape. Okay, so there we have our finished trellis stitch. Really nice simple one to start when you're learning this stitch. Like I said, there are lots of other variations and I'll show you some more in some videos soon. And don't forget, just to finish it off as well, it will need an outline stitch around it just to make that nice shape and to finish off these open edges. You can choose what stitch you like. You could pick a stem stitch or a coral stitch or scroll stitch, something decorative. And I've got lots of videos on my channel with those stitches in, so you can take a look at those and choose one. And there's trellis stitch for you.